I'm Jeff Fritz with SoundStage.com, and I've got a special guest today, SoundStage publisher Doug Schneider. Doug, how are you today?
Good, good.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about SoundStage, obviously, and really the way that SoundStage has changed and the way that it's grown in the past year. We're emerging from a global pandemic, obviously, but the beginning of 2020 was really interesting for SoundStage. And I want you to talk a little bit about when the pandemic started, how SoundStage reacted. What did you see as far as changes in the publishing industry, and specifically how SoundStage reacted?
Yeah, it's an interesting time because it's been a little over a year now, and we have, I think, a unique perspective because it all started coming down in early 2020, right? And January, February, there was this talk about the potential for this virus coming to North America, to Europe, but it really, not much had happened by then. And in fact, we had a trip, SoundStage, me with the video guys, to England to visit KEF, Vivid Audio, and PMC Speakers. And that was at the beginning of March. And towards the end of February, just before the trip, people were saying, hey, you might be crazy to go, this thing. And it wasn't a thing. It was in the news. It wasn't really a thing. So when it all started coming down, I was actually in England. And KEF was already talking about this and taking precautions because they were well aware of things going on. And we were talking with the other companies, but it wasn't really a thing. And as the week went on, though, it became a bigger thing. We started seeing it in the news more and more. We were out of London and around. And right on the last day that we were in London was when it really came down. And that was when we heard there was going to be international travel bans and all that sort of thing. And Chris Chitteroni, our lead videographer, and I were walking around London, and I said, wow, things are really going bad back home. Things are, I heard that they're out of toilet paper at Costco and stuff like that. Let's go into a store. And yeah, it was starting in this big supermarket in London. And we said, wow, things are going bad. And but then we went out and we went and saw Abbey Road Studios that night and went out to eat, and there was nothing much. And we got up the next morning. It was all normal. And I can remember we took a taxi and we got to Heathrow Airport, and it was all normal. And then we got in Heathrow Airport, and there was like 10,000 people in there. It was just packed, and we saw guys in raincoats, okay, all covered up with plastic and stuff like that. And there was a sense of panic. And I would say 10,000 people. And it was hours to get onto that plane. And the plane was packed, and it was when all the travel was shutting down.
Did you think you were going to make it home, or did you think you were going to get canceled? Or
here's the thing. It took us a couple hours to get through check-in, and we had time to get breakfast at this place, Marvelous Kitchen, Fabulous Kitchen. And Chris was eating so slow. It's like, I think we got to make it to the gate, man. We got to make it to the gate. And he's like, oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And we had Jeremy with us, the assistant. And then we hear the plane's boarding, and we've got a 15-minute run across the airport. Literally. And Chris has got bad knees. And Jeremy does CrossFit. So I'm like, Jeremy, run and hold that plane. Hold it. Okay. And it was literally a 15-minute run. We were the last people on the plane. So we did get home.
So when you got home and everything really began to explode in the news, what were the first signs that you saw that the publishing business was gonna change? Or, did you think it would just be business as usual?
No, it was on the plane ride home. I started thinking, and you looked around, and what we saw at the airport, and I said, this is going to be a big thing. And we were talking already to companies in England. And the first thing that came in my mind was, we got to keep publishing. We have to keep the content going. So the first thing on my mind, we can't control what's happening with this virus and pandemic, but we can control what's happening here. So the first thing on my mind was, we got to make sure we have equipment and stuff to review. And so as soon as I got home, and I think you and I talked about it, there was this idea, should we scale back, which some of our competitors did, or should we just keep going, in fact, improve and make the most of this situation? And I think that's what set everything apart, because that's what we did.
So when did it occur to you that the shows were going to get canceled? I think that was one of the early kind of concerns, and everybody was sitting around waiting. Are the shows going to go on? Are they going to get canceled? We have, for those viewers that don't know, we have SoundStage Global, which is a site that is designed specifically to cover shows both domestically and internationally. And so, part of our livelihood depends on that site. So when was your first inclination that, this is really going to change the way that the industry does business?
Well, if we look back now, it was happening because I think everybody was surprised that the Munich high-end show in May, I think that they canceled it in January that year, if not January, February. So it was already canceled. And everybody thought, oh, that seems a little rushed. And then I was supposed to go to the ISA convention, Expert Imaging and Sound Association, in May. And that got canceled about the same time I was in England. And so at that point, the Munich people were really ahead of the game canceling. And then I thought, this is, and there's no way this is going to go on. At the beginning, though, we look back and there's all this like two weeks to flatten the curve and stuff. I don't think anybody foresaw it go on this long,
right?
But it was apparent right away for the next months anyway, there wasn't going to be much happening.
So once the shows were canceled and the companies, they did not have that type of a venue to launch products, what was your communication with manufacturers throughout the industry as far as coverage of their products, how to cover their products without the shows? What did that look like for you?
Well, if you recall, we got on it really quick in March, and we were pretty loaded up with products by April. And I'd heard that some competitive magazines didn't have any products yet. We've always dealt globally. So a lot of the European companies sent products in throughout North America. We've always just got them direct. We've never, from Asia or whatever, generally got them through distributors. So there was a lot of products in. So that was reassured that we were going to cover them. Now, remember that first 2 months, we invested a lot in doing this. And we lost advertising because a lot of companies right away clamped down, cut their expenses, cut this, cut that. And reflecting back, I think not that was a mistake for many companies, but what happened surprised everybody right after, because everybody thought, oh, we're not going to have sales. All this is closed down. But in the HiFi and surprisingly home theater areas, their sales ramped up after a couple months. So there was that March, April, everybody was in this panic mode. But then by the end of April, all these companies are going, hang on, we're selling a lot of gear. And I talked to companies that sell home theater equipment, and suddenly they're like, we're selling home theaters like we've never sold in years. Mm-hmm. Because people were renovating and quite quickly within months, people were taking the money they would have spent elsewhere and channeling it into their homes and into HiFi. So 2 months after that initial March, April clampdown on everything came back big. And I think that those manufacturers who never saw that comeback probably hurt longer. And those that recognized, hey, this is actually, we're doing really well right now, their sales really exploded.
So you mentioned the companies, scaling back and then scaling back up. And we've certainly seen no real shortage of product launches. There have been new products across, all the sectors from the low price points right up to the very most expensive gear. Talk a little bit about how SoundStage scaled up, because, one of the things, and you and I had this discussion early on, it was really an opportunity for us to invest in some other things. We weren't going to Munich. We weren't taking 5 guys to Germany. So there was an opportunity to put those funds into other things in order to make the SoundStage network better. Talk a little bit about how we scaled up.
Yeah, so there was those first 2 months, and it was more not for us business as usual, but in fact improving our content, right, and scaling it up a bit. So there was always this idea never to cut back. And then when it was pretty obvious that, hey, people are online, we've got more readers than ever, companies are selling more stuff than ever, let's take advantage of this people at home thing and let's scale up. And we dropped in US dollars, almost $35,000 on the audio precision, having Diego Estan do the measurements for us and setting up that lab. And we basically brought that up a whole new level of measurements. We kept getting our speakers tested. Although there was a lull at the beginning because NRC had to close down, we were able to get back into speaker testing and get more tested. We were able to bring on more writers. And then there was the whole YouTube thing, along with scaling up on online readership. People were coming to YouTube. And we started Your Talks thing because people were in their factories, well, no longer in their factories, but at home, and you were talking to them. And we brought on Jay Lee to do the Take Two. So we actually scaled up our content from the beginning, our equipment, measurements and stuff in the summertime, and YouTube in the summertime till now. So I would say we're probably a quarter to a third larger in terms of all the content we produce. Do you agree?
Yeah, in fact, I would say, and one distinction to make is we not only scaled up content like with YouTube and Jay Lee, but we really scaled up content as far as just our normal publishing routes, right? SoundStage Access, for instance, Dennis Berger, who is running SoundStage Access now. We brought him on. He's been a great addition to our staff. So we've really strengthened the core business. You know, I don't remember the author of the quote, but I remember this quote that I've always really liked, that, you know, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And, you know, I've always wanted to make sure that even when we're expanding into these other areas, you know, the measurement, the YouTube, you know, social media, certainly, that we've also kept the reviews, the written reviews, the product reviews very, very strong. The editorial side, our copy editing, we've brought on new copy editors. So we've really strengthened from a publishing standpoint what we've always done. And then we've also expanded into other sectors. And, you know, we're still doing that. You know, I don't think we would say that we're there yet. You know, I mean, I think that's just kind of our nature, to be competitive and to always try to improve. But we've really scaled up on the YouTube side and social media, but we've also kept the core strength a strength.
And I think those written reviews are valuable. I remember when we brought Jay on, and Jay he does the Take Two, which is, for those who don't know, it's on this YouTube channel, but it's it's video reviews, second takes of products we've done written reviews on. And at first Jay was like, I don't quite get why two of them and that. And then after he did a couple and he'd read the reviews, he said, I get how these two complement each other, because
right.
Video review, you can only get so much information. And he said, when I've read the reviews I do on the products I'm doing a review on, there's so much more detail than I can put in video. So it really complements each other. So the written review has to be there. I mean, and then the video review is a great bonus.
So I've got two more questions for you. The last one, or the next to last one, is actually, you know, you've talked a lot about where SoundStage is now. Where do you think the publishing industry is going? What do you think SoundStage looks like, you know, maybe 6 months, 2 years from now? What's your vision for the future for SoundStage?
I've always been a little controversial and outspoken in this, but in 1995, when I saw the internet's going to be a big thing, and just the way you could electronically communicate with people. And it didn't take long before I said, print is dead. No, I didn't by that. I meant just not completely dead, lying on the ground, buried, whatever. But man, this is going to take a chunk out of print. And print publishers didn't see it. Oh, no, this internet thing's a fad, right? It's going away. No, you're dreaming in Technicolor if you think that. That's what's happening. You look today, a lot of what's changed in the pandemic, curbside pickup, online shopping and stuff, it's going to scale back after we get back to normal, but certain things are here to stay, and online is bigger. And that pushed a lot of things forward. I would say the pandemic didn't change that. It pushed what was going to happen in 2 or 3 years anyway. More people online, more shopping online, more all this online. And I would say now more than ever, YouTube has grown because of it and pushed that forward. It's just simply taken the whole online thing, whether you're talking online magazines, YouTube, and pushed it more and more. And I would say anybody who's using print publishing and that sort of thing, you got to think about what the future is, because it's pretty obvious how things have gone ahead. since 1995. And then now it's been like, whoa, a big jump within 1 year.
Yeah. Well, Doug, I've got one more question for you, and I see that you've got your System 1 set up behind you. For those of you that don't know, Doug Schneider writes a System 1 column on SoundStage HiFi, and it's about more affordable equipment. I see you've got that equipment behind you. I know you've got a bigger listening room in your home as well where you do most of your reviews. Tell us about a recent listening experience, something you've heard that's really kind of knocked you out.
Well, this I'm going to bring up because you might get involved in this, and I haven't heard this yet, but I'm a huge Lana Del Rey fan, right? And I use it in all my or use your music in all my reviews. So Chemtrails Over the Country Club is awesome. I love it. Okay, and so I was down at the CD store the other day, and look what I found. Chemtrails Over the Country Club Czech version of it. Is it the same? It doesn't look the same. The songs are all the same, but it doesn't look the same. Does it sound the same? And you know how I like to do those blind tests with our writers? Well, they're going to know that there's two Lana Del Rey albums here, but they're not going to know which or which is which, sorry. And I'm going to send out the files to them, and we'll see if they sound different. I haven't listened to them yet.
Now, that'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, thanks so much. I appreciate the inside look. I hope our viewers and readers, for that matter, really enjoyed the inside look at SoundStage, and make sure that you're checking our YouTube channel regularly, and of course all the sites where our content has only grown. We're publishing actually more content on all of our sites, and so it makes for busy months, but hopefully the content is what is really it's flourishing. So Doug, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks. And I just want to say, I think the best thing that we could have done is when adversity hits or a difficult situation hits, you make the best of it.
Yeah.
And you go forward.
I agree. All right.
Okay, thanks.